really hope that what I have prepared would be helpful for you. It was helpful for me. But before I start, I want to make a comment about me, and that is that I don't have a formal education in English, so my English is not the best. If I don't choose the right words, please don't be offended or upset about that. Just help me to correct what I don't know. I didn't do it properly, and I'm willing to learn. So just to let you know. Also, I'm a pastor since almost 22 years now, and I've been doing family ministry since almost 15 years. Karen was the first one who helped me to get in this field, and I'm so grateful about this. But for tonight, I prepared something for you, which is part of a study I did in Romania a few years ago about premarital counseling and marital satisfaction. I call it prepare for landing. I remember every time when I was flying, they are saying, I don't recall saying prepare for takeoff too much, but I remember always prepare for landing. It's like important thing to land properly. Taking off, it's easier. To land, it's a little bit more difficult. But I want to share with you something that got my attention. First of all, I read in a magazine some times ago, so I think more than 10 years, maybe 15 years ago. In 1990, there was a special issue of Time magazine called Beyond the Year 2000. And I took this quote from that. In this special edition, there was they tried to figure out how the life, the human society will be beyond the year 2000. And they had many, if you can read this special issue, I recommend to you, because they have some very interesting prediction. And because we can look back at the predictions they made. It is really it's really interesting for me, this. And they said they had a special article about dating. And they were saying, between many other things, that dating will be dangerous due to numerous communication problems and personality dysfunctions, and will be made by those who today practice extreme sports such as bungee jumping. It was interesting for me. It was like, come on. I mean, it cannot be like this. I mean, who can imagine something like this? But you know, a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years, I bought a book. It's in my library here. It's called Dating Game, and it was interesting for me that I think it's Henry Cloud. I hope I know the author right, but he was having this problem. He was talking about the idea that the young people don't like to date anymore because it's so dangerous, it's so difficult, it's so tough. And he's trying to teach young people how to date, actually how to get to know, how to make this game easier. And for me, it's like, maybe I'm old, maybe I'm too old for that, but it's easier to talk when you have this issue solved. You know, I'm married, I have 4 kids. It's easier to talk about this, but it seems that it's more and more difficult. I was talking with my girl, one of the oldest girl we have. She's at the law school right now in Poland, somewhere in Krakow actually, and she asked me a little time ago, Dad, how is possible for somebody to love one person for all her life? And that was her question. I had to talk with her about this, but it was interesting um, to talk with her, to try to understand the things that make this concept so difficult sometimes for the younger generation. But I think dating is not that dangerous, but also I think that what those specialists in Time magazine said, that it will be harder and more difficult. It is true. We can see this around us easier. But I would like to share with you one of the quotes from Ellen White that I like very much. It's like a motto for me. It's like when I talk about premarital counseling, when I think about premarital counseling, it's always coming in my mind. It says something like this: the family ties is the closest, the most tender and sacred of any of on earth. It was designed to be a blessing to mankind, and it is a blessing whatever the marriage covenant is entered into intelligently, in the fear of God and with due consideration for its responsibilities. Three things: you have to make the decision intelligently. You have to use your brain. You have to be aware of the things you'll decide about. It's something that you have to take. If you want to beat the odds, I think this is the right expression. If you want to beat the odds, you have to be smart. You have to be careful. You have to be intelligent. Use your brain, actually. Also, because the marriage is not some human institution discovered as a necessity in the distant history of mankind. It's actually an institution of divine origin. I think as Christians and Adventists especially, we have to take in account this fear of God. It's not about trembling before him, but you have to take in account that there are some things you have to accept, you have to think of, and there are some boundaries you have to take in account. Why? Because it transcends our ability to know things. It's something more than we can handle by ourselves. Also, I don't think that fear of God means that there's a concept, at least in Romania, we have it from time to time. I try to fight against this as much as I can. There's this romantic idea that there is a soulmate somewhere. You have to find somebody that God created especially for you. You have to find it, and if you don't find it, that's a problem. And I always tell the people, the church members, the youth especially, I'm telling them that in the Bible there is no such a concept. There are only two occasions when God chose a woman for a man, and in both situations went wrong. The marriage was a failure, actually. Adam and Eve, and we know what happened, and Isaac and Rebecca, and they had big issues to solve. It's not the matter that God did a wrong thing, no, but it's not sufficient to think that your husband or your wife is chosen by God. You have to know what to do with your wife and your husband to make that relationship happy, and but also involving God, that's for sure. And also consideration for his responsibilities. Actually, there are things that we have to know, we have to prepare for. That's the reason we are talking about premarital counseling. Why? Because premarital counseling, it's a process designed to intensify and improve the premarital relationship, to lead to more fulfilling and stable marriages with the precise intention of preventing divorce. I don't know if you knew that, but the first premarital program was made in 1932. by Marital Institute somewhere in America. So it has a long tradition, 1932, almost 100 years ago. And all the premarital counseling have about the same goal, usually to reach topics that will help the couple to be more happy in their marriages. Usually the typical objectives of different approaches includes facilitating the transition from single life to married life. There is a problem with this, especially with the young today. They are not marrying so too early. So usually they are more like a bachelors, which have to change their lifestyle quite a lot. If they lived alone for 10, 15 years, I mean, they have 35 years old. They have developed a way of living which is disturbed very much when they got together, and it's very difficult for them to make this relationship works. It's easier when you start your life younger into than later on, because you have to adapt, and it's very difficult. Usually the ability to adapt yourself to somebody else's schedule, habits, or whatever, it's becoming more and more difficult in time. So the premarital counseling, it's trying to help them finding solutions or preparing themselves for this transition, which is not easy for some young people. Also increasing the stability and satisfaction of the couple in the long and short term, because you prepare them and you help them to gain abilities maybe they don't have, or they need to increase them. Also enriching communication skills, which is one of the most important things when we talk about marital satisfaction. Also intensifying the relationship of friendship and commitment to the relationship, couple intimacy and learning skills needed to solve problems or make decisions in all kinds of areas of family. About marital satisfaction, it's not easy to define this marital satisfaction. I will talk a little bit more about this. I try to give you three different definitions I have found. One is made by Peleg in a study he made in 2008, and defines marital satisfaction as the degree to which one partner perceives that the other partner is fulfilling his needs and desires. It's, you feel like the other one is there for you. It's helping you. It's fulfilling what you need. And but also there is another one, the situation in which the husband and wife have feelings of fulfillment and prosperity toward each other most of the time. It's not just a feeling from some time to time, but it's most of the time. And the third one, it's a term used to describe mainly the subjective perception that each husband and wife has about their partner and their relationship. And also it's used to describe activities that couples carry out in the relationship and they are satisfactory to them. Marital satisfaction has a long history in the psychology and sociological studies. I think at least I did find out that the first one, Kirkpatrick, was the one who studied. It was in 1937. It has a long history, but usually for a long period of time, they studying the happy and satisfactory marriages, and they have to switch after a while. I mean, I think 30 years ago or something like this, they have to they try to find out not only what it makes them happy, but they try to find why some couples are not doing that. They cannot be happy as they want. So I'll talk a little bit more about marital satisfaction because it's an important issue. It's not easy to define the term marital satisfaction, as I said before, because it's something that you feel, you think, which is really is not something that you can define easily. You know, you have some points. If you have that, you are happy. No, sometimes even you have the things the studies are saying you have to be happy. The feeling can be different, and I want to go further a little bit. The first thing that affects marital satisfaction is the personal characteristics. You have heard about Big Five, and there are some things I want to tell you about this. You have to know. I think you know that already, but I want to emphasize a little bit. The highest risk in terms of marital dissatisfaction is neuroticism, which is defined as emotional or emotional instability. When there is emotional instability, which is characterized by lack of self-confidence, feeling of loneliness, worry and anxiety, inferiority, complex, difficult self-image, feelings of guilt, tension, and stress. Usually when you have these anxious, unhappy, and negative emotions, this characteristic is usually connected with marital dissatisfaction. You are not happy, even though the relationship, even though the other one is trying, you know, even though your husband or your wife is trying to make life nicer, to be happy. If you have this characteristic, it's more difficult for you to feel satisfaction in marriage. And this is something we have to know, we have to talk about, and we have to help them dealing with. Because it's not easy for a person like this to change without realizing that actually that's a problem. Also, according to some other studies, the more pleasant your partner is, the happier you are. Agreeableness, extraversion, and conscientiousness, sorry for my English, tend to have a lesser positive association with satisfaction, while openness to experiences does not play an important role in marital satisfaction. Usually expressing negative emotion has a consistent negative connection with satisfaction. You are not happy when you hear all the time negative emotion or you feel negative emotions, but expressing positive emotion has a consistent positive connection with marital satisfaction. And, you know, sometimes I told my wife, you know, when there's this content is like when it's raining with I don't know the English name, you know, when it's raining with ice, with small stones from ice. It's like this. Yeah. So when it's raining like this, nothing is growing. You know, I put in my garden, I have a garden, and I put vegetables usually there. And one year I put some very nice tomatoes, and I was so happy about them. And I went to church on Saturday, sorry. When I came back, there was a rain like that with the stones, and in the end, nothing was there. I mean, only the stick, no leaves, no flowers, nothing, just the stick. And it was like, oh, I had to put them again. But when it's this kind of relationship, when you have this characteristic of complaining all the time, have this anxious and unhappy way of expressing your negative emotions, it's always connected with marital dissatisfaction. And sometimes it doesn't have a connection with the actual relationship. is just a personal characteristic, a way of seeing life. It's a spirit in a way. And if we don't make them, if we are not aware of this, and we don't help couples to realize this, they'll have really tough time not knowing what's the problem actually. Also, marital satisfaction is connected a lot with communication, as I said. I try to make my presentation not showing everything, but I cannot do that. I don't know why. But anyway, you can see it like this. It's crucial for marital satisfaction to have an effective communication, because this is the only way we can know, we can let us be known. This thing is so important in marital satisfaction. All the researches has shown in both cross-sectional and longitudinal studies that as a couple, communication consistently and significantly influences marital satisfaction. And also a special form of communication is humor. There are not so many studies on the influence of humor on marital satisfaction, but I did find some who show that the impact of intentional humor, the humor created by people to please others, has an important factor in the influence of marital satisfaction. But this impact is different. Usually for men, humor has a greater impact on marital satisfaction than for women, at least the studies I did find out. So use humor as much as you can. Also, there is a big connection, a huge connection between marital satisfaction and attachment. And you know the theory about attachment. I just want to emphasize this idea that people with most characteristics of the avoidant attachment style have experienced the lowest level of marital satisfaction compared to other attachment styles. I recommend always in my premarital practice to find out what kind of attachment they have, style they have, so at least they can be aware of the problems they can have. Because usually I did find that if you have an anxious style with avoidant style, usually this connection, this relationship has a huge risk in time. But you know, all these things can be learned before marriage. If you are aware, you can change some, or at least you can be prepared for things that will come. If you don't know, if nobody is teaching you, is nobody telling you about this, you can find yourself in situations which are really difficult to deal with. So I think premarital counseling is so good because it can help them to realize things that it will be easier for them in the future, because there is a connection between, there is a correlation between marital satisfaction and attachments. And this theory, you can find more information. It's available everywhere. Some of you, or maybe all of you, know already about this. There is also a connection between marital satisfaction and forgiveness. There are studies about this, and I recommend you to read more about this thing, especially the relationship between forgiveness, perfection, and marital satisfaction. There are three types of perfectionism. One is the self-centered perfectionism, a person which has a high expectation of himself or herself and sets goals to avoid mistakes and to achieve perfection. Usually when they are making mistakes, they tend to blame themselves and have a high degree of guilt. And this type of person will be afraid to get close in relationships because they are afraid that they don't deserve to be loved. And also they are afraid of rejection. So if there is such a thing, it can affect a lot marital satisfaction. Also, there is a second type of perfectionism oriented towards others. A person like this has an irrational expectation of others, and they are extremely critical of what others are doing. And they tend to dominate, they tend to be very competitive, they tend to be distant, impassioned, and selfish. Some of them label themselves as having leadership skills, which is actually not true, but they think so. They tend to accuse others, and they are quite insensitive to their feelings and their needs. Usually with those persons, it's quite difficult to have a really nice relationship if things are not changing. And also there is a socially assumed perfection. This type of person has unrealistic expectation. Being perfect, others may be life partners, parents, God, the teachers, friends, or co-workers. Usually they live permanently with the feeling that the others are evaluating their performance, putting pressure on them to achieve perfection. Usually those kind of person experiences relationship problems because they tend to blame others for their expectation of themselves. Anyway, this perfectionism, I think it's a topic. I don't know if your culture it has this weakness, if I can say that, but in my culture in Romania, I think it's a big problem with this perfectionism, and sometimes this is also affecting our perspective about God, about relationships, about the church. And I think, at least in my culture, this is something which affects quite a lot the relationship we have, marital satisfaction, and also our theology and relationship with God. There is also a correlation between marital satisfaction and religiosity. There are not so many studies about this. It's a less researched factor. But there are some which argue that religion affects communication, conflict resolution, decision-making, commitment, sexuality, and the parental dimension of marriage. Religiosity amplifies marital satisfaction, provides assistance in time of crisis, provides support when going through stressful time, but also it creates happiness. This ability to cope with stress, depression, anxiety, and physical illness, it's greater among those who are religious. Also, there are some studies about prayer, actually many studies, which are saying that prayer restores the relationship, increases empathy, balances perspective, decreases adverse emotions and emotional reactions. If you pray, you have a greater ability to make adjustments, which is really important in life, especially marriage, because all the things can and will be changed during your life. And there is also a study I mentioned here, which found out that couples with different religion have a greater divorce rate than couples in which both partners have the same religion, which is an issue, and it's an important issue with among Adventists. I don't know if in your country, but in Romania, this is a big issue. And sometimes I'm asked about this, and I counseled also. I had some session with some couples with mixed religion, and I always try to discuss this topic because usually it's affecting the marital satisfaction, and they have to be prepared for that. Also, there is a huge connection, and you know already that, I think, between marital satisfaction and sexuality, because the sexuality it contributes significantly to marital satisfaction within the couple, because a good sexual relationship is an indicator of the overall quality of the couple's relationship. I always tell during sexuality meetings or sessions that sexuality, human sexuality, it's a very fine instrument, if I can say. I try to translate from Romanian, which is balancing and also not define, it's balancing, and it's a very good indicator of the whole relationship. Usually when things are getting worse, sexuality is the first which is affected. Where it's over, I mean, it's done, she's starting to have headache every day or every time, and he's really tired or whatever, or it becomes very intense, because it's a mechanism, a very fine mechanism to regulate the entire relationship, and there is a connection between marital satisfaction and sexuality. Also, marital satisfaction and money. Money management, when I read this study, it was like, I thought only the Romanians have this problem, but it seems no. Money management is a major source of marital conflict and financial discontent. It's one of the most common areas of conflict for American couples. In a way, this affirmation, this declaration it was like, we are not the only ones. But it seems that money, it's a major issue for marital satisfaction. Not only if you have more or less. This is not such an issue. There are studies that they are saying that happiness is not connected with money. No, let me rephrase. There is a connection between money and happiness, or marital satisfaction, or personal happiness, only when you don't have money. I mean, you have a very low income. Money counts when you have a low income. But when you have a medium income, and from that point above, they don't count. I mean, they don't have an impact on your happiness or marital satisfaction, actually. But the management, the way you deal with money, that's a problem and can be a problem. Usually the one who makes more money has more power. It's a long history of studies between marital satisfaction and money. And I think it's a study that we have to talk with them. Also, there is a relationship between marital satisfaction and the children. The birth of the first child is a factor in decline of marital satisfaction. There is this graphic, I put it here. It shows, I'm sorry, it's in Romanian. I cannot change that, and I didn't have the time to make a new one with the English words. But the first one is without children, small children, school children, teen in your family, leaving the house, and the last one when they are gone with their life. And as you can see, the marital satisfaction is decreasing in time, because having a child is not an easy burden to bear. And the first, so one of the main reason is that marital satisfaction, marital relationship, and the role of parent are in competition for the same limited resources. And you have to be very careful and wise to make the best decisions, because you cannot fulfill all the needs you have in this new position. And what I was interested about in this graphic is that usually mom, which is in the red line, moms are recovering quite fast when their children are teens, usually. But the men, the blue one, usually started to increase his happiness or marital satisfaction when the children are leaving the house. It's an interesting thing. Maybe we should talk about this once, why it's happening like this. Also, okay. This is the things I've studied about marital satisfaction. There are some other issues also in correlation with marital satisfaction, but I think those are the major I did find out, and I want to share it with you. I did the study in Romania, as I told you, about the relationship between marital satisfaction and premarital counseling in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I had the study with 100 I asked them to fill up a questionnaire with information about themselves, their relationship, their premarital counseling sessions, the number, the topics, and also I asked them to fulfill a questionnaire about marital satisfaction. I use DAS, the ADIC. Sorry, I forgot the English name. And after I've done the correlation between information, I did find out some interesting things for me, and I want to share it with you. First conclusion was that there is a significant and positive correlation between the number of issues addressed in premarital counseling and the marital satisfaction that subjects perceived in the couple's relationship in the first 3 years of marriage. If there were more topics addressed in premarital counseling, the more marital satisfaction was, the greater was the marital satisfaction they perceived in the first 3 years. I've done a study because I did find out a study that it says that every premarital counseling has an influence or has an impact for not more than 3 years. After 3 years, the impact of the premarital counseling is lost. I mean, the information, the impact, you have to participate in another family enrichment program, something like this. Also, if you had more topics in the premarital counseling, you have a significant higher premarital satisfaction that you have only 1 to 5 topics. And also, those who attended more session, I mean, you take the issue and talk about that extensively, have a significant higher overall marital satisfaction than those who attended 1 or 2 sessions. And the conclusion was that if you have more time for the premarital counseling and you address more topics in these sessions, the marital satisfaction in the first 3 years will be greater, far greater. Also, there are some topics, at least for Romania, was interesting to see, because I tried to find out which topics are more important, because some are more important than others. And it was interesting that the issue of conflict resolution, if you address this issue and you talk about this, it will help them a lot during the marriage. If you talk about it, if you help them gain abilities to cope with stress, to know how to deal conflict resolution, it will help them to address issues better and also have a greater marital satisfaction. Because as I told you before, marital satisfaction and communication is a big thing, huge thing actually. And some of us, we need to learn how to communicate properly, how to talk, how to express ourselves, how to listen carefully, how to understand others. And usually during the premarital period, the dating, especially if they are involved in sexual activity and they have this connection, this thing in their life. Usually their ability to solve problems, to address problems, it's decreased in a way. I try to find the English words. If you don't understand, you have to ask me to explain more. You have the tendency to not addressing difficult issues when you are involved early in sexual activity, because the pleasure and also the willingness to the pleasure of the act of sexual act and the willingness to go through the difficult time of dealing with problems, those two usually don't go well together. So knowing how to solve conflict, it's a big issue. Also, there is another topic specifically for Romanians, but also, if I remember well from Value Genesis, I think Italy has this problem also, and I think other cultures also. Relationship with relatives, with family of origin. In this study, I have discovered that this topic is really important for young people, because it's not easy for them to deal with their family of origin, and realizing and learning how to deal with it's an important issue. Also, those who have gone through this sexuality topic, especially today where there are so many information about this, and sometimes they don't know how to deal with all this information. If you talk about this topic in premarital counseling program, has a significant influence over marital satisfaction. There are also two other topics. What Christian family means. I discovered that, but I have to make a break to explain you something. In Romania, we don't have a program, premarital counseling program. We didn't have until recently. We started with Prepare and Reach from some time. Some of the pastors did that. Most of them know, but we have like a manual. The union prepared like a manual with topics that they are good to address in this premarital counseling, and we recommend pastor to go through some topics, and I try to find out in this study which are the most important topics pastor should address in premarital counseling. And one of them was the Christian family. What is like to be a Christian family? Actually, what it means to be a Christian family, Christian family. And it seems that this topic is important, at least in Romania. And also, one of the topics made a significant effect over marital satisfaction is the topic of family planning. About I call this planned decision about children and your sex life. Those were the 5 most important topics I did find out in the study I did in Romania that have a great impact over marital satisfaction in those 3 years. Also, recently, we start to have more and more premarital, the Prepare and Reach as a premarital counseling program. And we try to have all the pastors, or at least as much as we can, being prepared. I mean, being formed as Prepare and Reach. I call this, how can I say it? be able to use the program. Yeah, I think is the right way. So I have a conclusion, and that is that there is a relationship between marital satisfaction and premarital counseling. I really want to encourage you to, in your countries, in your unions, in your places where you are working with pastors, to use all the means you have, all the information you have, or some of the information I gave you, to help pastors to do a proper premarital counseling. In Romania, it's mandatory for the wedding to have a premarital counseling session with the pastor before marriage. But no, how can I say that? We try to help the pastors to understand the importance of this topic. So maybe it would be a great help for you also. Maybe those information would help you to give more attention to premarital counseling, and also maybe it will be a great help to for your pastors, to encourage them, to motivate them to do more premarital counseling than before, maybe. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention, and I hope I helped you a little about this topic.
Yeah.